The year, 2025. The date, May 24th. High up, a satellite circled, mapping far-off, empty lands. But today, it saw something new, something impossible. Deep in Central Asia's wildlands, a place forgotten by maps. Its sensors found odd things, strange, perfect shapes. Analysts stared at their screens. They couldn't believe it. Then they were shocked. These weren't natural. The lines were too straight, the curves too perfect. They looked like buildings. Huge buildings with many parts. Dr. Aris Thorne was called, an archaeologist, a scientist of old things who thought differently. He looked at the images. He gasped. The patterns spoke to him, whispering of a very, very old past, a very advanced past. This was it, the discovery, the one that would change everything. The size was amazing. First thoughts were mind-blowing. This buried thing made Giza's pyramids look small. It was older than Sumer. It made Stonehenge look like a kid's toy. What this meant was huge. Human history, as we knew it, was wrong. There was another civilization, a great one, and it was wiped out. Until this one satellite beam, a tiny thread, pulling back time's curtain on a huge old secret. Secrecy was key. Thorne knew it. He got a small team, trusted folks, experts in their fields. They traveled by night, using secret routes and fake papers. Their destination, the empty quarter, the spot where the satellite whispered its impossible secret. The trip was hard. The desert was cruel. They got to the coordinates. Nothing, just sand. Endless rolling dunes. Doubts began to creep in, but the ground-penetrating radar told a different story. It screamed of structures, deep beneath their feet. Massive walls, huge, cave-like spaces. A city, or maybe a city of the dead, waiting. Then the drill broke through. Into open space, a collective gasp. They sent down a camera, a tiny eye in the dark. What it revealed took their breath away. Stone, carved stone, smooth, perfectly fitted, not rough-cut blocks. This was something else, more precise, more advanced. It was the roof of a huge chamber, untouched, unseen for countless ages. The first explorer went down into the silent, waiting darkness. His helmet light cut the blackness. It hit a wall, then another. He stood in a massive passage. The size was beyond words. The precision. Terrifying. This was no crude shelter. This was the work of masters, masters of a long-lost art. The way these buildings were made was amazing, like a beautiful song, but with things that seemed impossible. They found buildings that broke all the rules of how things are usually built, materials that looked like they just soaked up light. No cement or anything held the huge blocks together. They were just joined, perfectly smooth. It was like they were poured into place, like liquid stone. Then it hardened into something even stronger than granite. Giant arches reached up into the darkness. You couldn't see anything holding them up. Buildings twisted upwards like spirals. They disappeared into the darkness, way up high. The way they were built was super complicated, almost like a puzzle that didn't follow normal rules. It tricked your eyes. The city wasn't just built. It looked like it was carved, made by hands that understood the big secrets of the universe. The city's design was amazing. It wasn't just put together any old way. It was all planned out. Wide streets, twisty, turning tunnels, big, open squares, and all around them, super tall buildings. Every single building was like a perfect piece of art in how it was designed. There were no signs that anything was worn out or broken. It was like time itself was afraid to touch this place. It was kept safe, perfect, waiting to tell its story, a story our minds had a really hard time understanding. Deep inside the city, they found artifacts, not tools made of stone or bronze. These were different, strange crystal devices. They glowed softly from the inside. When they touched them, they made a humming sound, a low hum of energy. But there were no power sources. It was like they got their power from space itself, or from a source that died out a long, long time ago. Some things looked like they were for talking to others, or for saving information. They were like complicated webs made of strange metals. They had patterns of light inside them. When they turned them on, they showed pictures, not on a screen, but right in the air. 3D. Shimmering, they showed star maps of stars we don't know today. Or complicated shapes of living things, or math problems that made no sense. The science behind them was impossible to understand. It was a jump way beyond anything the team had ever imagined. It was like magic, or technology so super advanced, you couldn't tell it apart from magic. The walls were talking, not with words, but with symbols. Everywhere they looked. carved into the strange stone, glowing softly on metal plates. A never-ending amount of complex symbols, not like any writing humans had ever known. This was something totally strange, or maybe something very, very old. The detail was amazing. Each symbol was a work of art. The language experts on the team were stumped, frustrated. They took pictures of every carving, they compared them. They used every code-breaking tool they knew. Nothing. The language stubbornly stayed silent, like it existed outside of how humans talk. But still, it was clearly a language, advanced, precise, able to share huge amounts of information. Some symbols were just shapes, like in geometry. Others seemed to show things in space or how living things work. Some were just abstract, making you feel things instead of thinking about clear ideas. The writing wasn't just for keeping records, it seemed like it was woven into the city itself. Like the symbols themselves had power, or they were part of the technology. Word started to get out. You can't keep something this big a secret forever. People in spy agencies started whispering about it. Other countries saw strange things on their satellites. The team knew they didn't have much time. Thorne tried to write a first report, to get the news out to the scientists, to everyone. But the people who wanted to keep it quiet were already moving, fast, and they meant business. The first sign was the static. The radios went dead, the satellite connections were cut. Then they started closing in. Planes with no markings flew above. Far away they saw figures, soldiers. They weren't from any army they knew, but they were good, real good at their jobs. They were being trapped, cut off. The message was clear. What they found was now a secret, a really big secret, buried even deeper than the city itself. The team felt a cold, hopeless feeling. They had found something amazing, only to have it taken away. The official stories started coming out. Lies. Every single one. They were made to make any rumors sound silly, to make anyone who told the truth sound crazy, or like a bad guy. The news people, who usually love big stories, said nothing. Or they only told the official story. Thorne and his team were taken out, questioned and threatened. They were made to sign papers saying they wouldn't tell. Their notes and information were taken. Their samples were taken too. They were told to forget what they saw, but how could they? They had walked in huge halls built by giants. They had touched machines from a time long, long ago. They had seen the real secret story of the world. Staying quiet was hard, but the other choice was even worse. What this city? Who built it? These questions, they just kept bugging Thorne. They were blocked from the site, blocked from their data. All they could do was guess. One idea was a lost part of humankind, a super smart group that was doing great, like tens of thousands of years ago maybe, even before the last ice age. Another idea was even wilder, more unsettling. What if the builders weren't human? Maybe older thinking beings from Earth, reptiles, birds, something else altogether, or the most unsettling idea of all, maybe they weren't from Earth at all. Visitors from outer space, colonists or explorers. They built this super advanced place, the incredible age. That was the biggest puzzle. It was older than any known civilizations, but by thousands of years. It hinted that history isn't just a straight line going up, but more like a circle. Things rise and then they fall. Great civilizations reaching for the stars, only to fall because of war, because of disasters, because they got too full of themselves. Maybe this was just one of those cycles, the latest in a long, long line. And our own civilization, just the current version, not even knowing about the giants whose shoulders we're standing on, or whose ruins lie right under our feet. The technology itself hinted at this. It wasn't just a more advanced version of our own stuff. It was different, like it came from a whole different understanding of science, a different set of basic rules. This pointed to it growing up all on its own, or knowledge given to them from somewhere else. The city was a relic from a world before the dawn of our own, a world whose very existence shattered every textbook and every idea we thought was true. Not finding any bodies was one of the biggest mysteries. No graves, no skeletons, no signs of the people who lived there. It was like they just vanished, poof, into thin air. Were they moved out? Did they move up to a higher way of living? Or maybe their bodies just didn't last. Or maybe they weren't living things like we know. It was also weird that there were no personal things like everyday stuff. The city looked super clean, giant, but like no one lived there. If they were people, they were a kind of people very, very different from us. Maybe taller, stronger, with different ways of seeing or hearing things. The way they built things showed that, how big things were, the weird energies. Maybe they lived for a really, really long time, like for hundreds of years or thousands. Their minds, too, must have been different, able to understand really hard math. The secret knowledge you could see in what they made. They were the real old ones, the very first ones. Could they have known their end was coming? Did they leave the city as a message, a warning, or something they left behind for us? The signs on the walls, the quiet machines. Was it a time capsule waiting for people in the future, someone worthy, to find out their secrets, to understand their story? The city's silence was so loud. It told of a big leaving, a big loss, but also maybe a lot of hope, that what they knew wouldn't be lost forever. Lots of ideas were talked about in the small, secret groups of people who knew. Were they beings from other dimensions, able to travel between worlds? Did they just go back to where they came from, or did their own cool stuff hurt them? A really bad experiment, a weapon that got out of control. So many things could have happened, and scary. The builders were a big puzzle, like a blank page where any idea could be written, but the real story was still hidden, kept safe, quiet, just like the city. Discovering this impossible city, this silent city, older than memory itself, it doesn't just add a new chapter to history, it demands that we rewrite the entire book from the very first page. Our understanding of the past, of where we came from, of our place in the universe, it's built on shaky ground, ground that this one discovery shatters into a million pieces. The questions it brings up are big and worrying, and these questions echo in the quiet that's been forced. What else lies hidden beneath the sands, under the oceans, under the ice? How many other cities, how many other civilizations have risen and fallen, unknown, unrecorded? Our accepted story of how humans developed, from early people hunting and gathering to how we live today. It suddenly seems too simple, even like we were too proud. We might just be like children playing in the ruins of a world much older, a world much more amazing and much more mysterious, a world that powerful people want us to forget. Trying to hide this truth, well, maybe you can kind of get why. In a strange way, news like this could shake up governments, religions, the way whole communities live. It could make people panic or make them doubt everything they believed. But can the truth be buried forever? Can the past stay silent when it wants to speak? The satellites saw, the team explored. The knowledge is out there, even if it's hidden for now. Locked away, yes, but it's like a seed planted in the minds of a few people. A seed that will for sure grow. The city waits patiently, as it has for thousands of years. It holds answers to our biggest questions. Who are we? Where do we come from? Are we alone? The fight to find its secrets, to bring its story out into the open. It's a fight for the real story of our past. Will they be able to keep it secret? Or will the whispers from beneath the sands become a roar that will awaken the world?